Welcome to Beyond the Niche, Beyond the Factors, a machine learning love story. My name is Mordy Oberstein, and I used to be a classroom teacher. Through a totally irrelevant and boring story, I am now the marketing manager over at RankRanger. RankRanger is a custom SEO digital marketing suite that was built in 2009 by some pretty gifted folk. But now, what we all are here for, and that is, in any love relationship, there are these four sort of dreaded words, and those are, we need to talk. And we need to talk about machine learning, about ranking factor studies, particularly niche ranking factor studies, and how we use the data that comes out of these studies. So I'm going to start with a bit of a story about a boy, a quiet boy, living a very uneventful life. And his name happens to be Rank, and he's living this very stable, uneventful life until he meets this big city girl, who sort of brings him out of his shell, turns him from a boy, and makes him into a man. And despite your naughty thoughts, I'm actually referring to the increase in rank fluctuations, rank volatility over time. So this is not really the biggest news ticket item. You know this already. Rank is more volatile relative to the past, but it's still worthwhile to take a look and see what exactly does that landscape, what does it look like? Okay, so to get a sense of where we stand now with rank, let's take a look at a data set that spans across 5 different niches. And particularly the top 5 results that these keywords produced. And taking a look and to see how often from one month to the next, there was a sort of an exact match. In other words, top 5 domains, same order from one month to the next. And survey says that used to happen about 27% of the time, which is pretty good. Currently that stands at about 10%. So you don't need to be Einstein to realize that's an enormous decrease in rank volatility among the top 5 results. And you can only imagine that things get progressively worse, top 10, top 20. Okay, so rank is more volatile than it used to be, yes, but to what extent? Specifically, how many positions are sites moving? Are they moving up or down? 1 position, 2 positions. So same 5 niches, but this time looking at the top 20, and the number or the average positions that sites tend to move when they are, in fact, on the move. That number used to stand about 2.5 results. Of course, you can't move 2.5 positions. Of course, you can't move half a position because that would be crazy. So it's an average. Currently, sites move about 4 positions. So again, it's not rocket science. That's an enormous increase in the to the extent in which sites are moving up or down the page. Hopefully up. Yet there's still one more dynamic that I want to take a look at, and that is rank diversity. How diverse is rank? And to understand this, let's take a look at the same 5 niches, top 20 results, but counting up the number of unique domains produced by the dataset. So back in 2016, the dataset produced about 1,300 or so unique domains, and currently we're at about 2,200. So yes, once again, an enormous increase. So rank is far more volatile, sites are moving to greater extents, up or down, and rank is much more diverse than it used to be. Which of course begs the question of what is behind this? Who is this sort of mystery woman driving rank to be as prolific as it is now? So as you may or may not have guessed, I'm referring to Google's machine learning properties, RankBrain in particular, which makes good sense because, again, more diverse understanding of intent requires a more diverse set of sites. Okay, makes good sense. But I haven't really taught you anything novel yet. Where am I going with all of this? And what I want to really look at is how or what new dynamics has machine learning produced in terms of rank? What does rank look like now? So first we have to realize that machine learning or RankBrain touches far more many queries than it used to, by a lot. It touches almost everything at this point. And as Google's machine learning properties are touching more of the quote-unquote Googleverse, what's the impact of that? Or keeping with our theme, what is the offspring of this reality? And to understand this, we're going to take a look at a few insurance websites and their visibility scores, rather the visibility trends. So here's Progressive.com. You'll notice there's a sharp increase from the end of 2016 and onwards, and then a decrease in the summer of 2017, and things are looking back up for the site now. Very, very similar pattern for StateFarm.com, and a very, very similar pattern for Allstate.com. If you were to look at Geico.com or Nationwide.com, you would notice the same sort of trend. Okay, so we have these this set of unique trends or visibility patterns for these various sites, but what exactly does that mean for us? So let's take a look at these sites actually exist on a page. So here's a query for buy car insurance, and you'll notice some of these sites like Geico rank on this page, and they're in blue, highlighted in blue. But as astute observers, you'll also notice that I have a couple of sites in these red boxes here. Now, these are sites where you cannot actually buy a car insurance policy, but rather you can learn about buying a car insurance policy. They are informative sites, and believe it or not, 4 of the 10 sites that ranked on this page were these sort of informative sites where you could not actually buy a car insurance policy, but only learn about doing so. And wouldn't you guess that these sites have their own ranking patterns, their own visibility score trajectory. So here you have consumerreports.org. Let's compare that to nerdwallet.com, and again, very, very similar pattern, but different than the insurance sites. So you might say, okay, great. We have these 2 different types of sites with 2 different unique ranking patterns that show up on the same page. But is that common? Is this a fluke? No. What I did was I ran 150 buy keywords, buy queries. Simple things like buy socks, buy underwear, complicated things like buy a boat, buy a house, buy a car. And it turns out that out of these 15 or 100 or so results, 150 keywords, 10 results per page, 1,500 or so actual results. About 26% of them were these informative sites where I could not buy anything, but only learn about buying the product in question. Big whoop. Well, it is a big whoop. Why? Well, think about it like this. Machine learning creates a context for rank. In other words, before you ever get to a ranking factor, per se, Google's machine learning creates a context for rank. Now, that's a very abstract concept, and I'm going to try to boil down some concrete understandings. Okay, think about it like this. So, Google's machine learning understands that there's multiple intents for that keyword, buy car insurance. And in fact, it also sets up a proportion of site to meet each intent. In this case, Google's machine learning has set up 4 sites to meet the intent to learn about buying car insurance, and 6 to actually buy a car insurance policy. Or think about it this way. Geico.com was the #1 rated site on that particular page. Was it an accident? And I don't mean Geico per se. I mean a site where you can buy car insurance relative to learning about buying car insurance. In other words, no matter what that second site does, no matter how optimized it is, that second site offering the ability to learn about car insurance will never rank in the top spot because of a ranking factor. No, because the essential intent of that query is to buy car insurance. So a site that offers car insurance will rank in the top spot. Or think about it like this. Let's say I did the search for buy car insurance, which sounds simple enough. But Google says, you know what, Oberstein, what you really mean 100% of the time is to learn about buying car insurance. Now, what happens to those 6 sites that are currently ranking where I can buy car insurance? Well, presumably, they would all fall off the page of the SERP. They wouldn't rank anymore. They'd be irrelevant. Or think about it like this. All of these insurance sites go up together. They all go down together. Why? Because Google said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to change the way we weight the various ranking factors for this niche. And it turns out what's going to happen is all these sites coincidentally are optimized the same way. So they all go up together. No, because the common denominator here is not optimization. It's what these sites do. It's what they offer. In other words, what's far more likely is that Google's machine learning properties have understood intent differently for certain keywords, and these sites became highly, highly, highly relevant, and their rank visibility scores went up. And as Google readjusted, their visibility scores went down, or the ranking went down. All of this points to a new ranking paradigm, one that's primarily driven by Google's machine learning properties. Think about it like this, okay? 60% of that buy car insurance page 1 of that SERP, is occupied by sites that offer me car insurance policies. And no matter what these sites do, no matter how optimized they are, no matter how in line they are, the niche ranking factor weights, they will never rank for the other 40% of the page. Now, this, of course, brings up a good practical implication. If I was Geico, what would I do? Well, I would write a guide how to buy car insurance so they can circumvent this and rank on the other 40% of the page. So what does this mean for niche ranking factor studies? Well, intent or subintent, or the endless number of intent within intent within intent within intent, throws that data into a bit of a tizzy. And there's multiple ways you can look at this. You can look at this, you're targeting multiple keywords that are more or less synonyms of each other, yet the latent intent that Google sees within them is vastly different. Or you can take a look at one page, one SERP with multiple sites, multiple intents on them, like we saw before. So let's go with the latter, simply because it's a bit easier and a bit less time consuming to go through. And what I did here was I ran 100 more buy queries, but this time only for buying software. So buy digital marketing software, buy e-learning software, and so forth. And it turns out, out of these 100 or so keywords that produce 1,000 results, well, 40% of them were these informative sites where I could not buy anything, which is up from the 26% from the keyword set overall, which makes good sense because buying stocks is far less complicated than buying software. But that's not where the story really ends, because 70% of these 400 or so sites were sites that listed best products. In other words, do a search for buy digital marketing software, and you get back top 5 digital marketing software solutions you need, or your entire marketing strategy will blow up in your face. But 30% were these sort of buying guides that taught me not which product to buy, but how to go about choosing the various products, what considerations I might have before I choose a product. In other words, you have the query, you have intent A, which is to buy, and that's simple, but probably not. Then you have intent B. Intent B is to learn about buying. Within intent B is subintent A. Subintent A is which product to buy. Subintent B is how to go about choosing these products, what considerations to have before you buy the software product in question. And each of these intents and subintents are going to have their own weighing of the various factors that apply to them. Which means for niche ranking factor studies, and forget general ranking factor studies because they are far too general, well, it means with all due respect, and while they should be written, while they should be read, while they should be used, I'm not advocating otherwise, the usability of that data or how we use the data needs to be perhaps re-evaluated. Why? Well, as I mentioned, okay, each intent or subintent is going to have its own weighing of the various ranking factors. You have to remember, what is a ranking factor? It's a signal to Google that this site will achieve X. It will achieve its purpose. In other words, if a site is intent, no pun intended, on achieving X, well, for X, A, B, C, D, E, F, G are important. But let's say you don't want to achieve X. Let's say you are all about achieving Y with your site. Well, for Y, A, B, C, D, E, F, G are irrelevant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that becomes relevant. Let me give you an example from the medical niche. Within the medical niche, there are multiple types of sites. For example, my uncle has diabetes. So he might do a search for how to make this green goose shake if you have diabetes. So it's a recipe site within the health niche, and like any other recipe site, and Google's pretty much said as much, having an image is very important because I will bounce if I cannot see what this thing actually looks like. Yet within the same niche are diagnosis sites, like, do I have a pinched nerve? Now here, a page could very well show you a generic image used in every Icy Hot commercial of some person rubbing the back of their neck. In other words, two sites within the same niche, but two very, very different things that are important to them. So it's not so much what tips the scale for your niche, but what tips the scale for the pages on your site. Which means, of course, that going forward, we have to reevaluate or reconsider how we use the data from niche ranking factor studies. Which, of course, then begs the question of what do we do? Where is opportunity in the world of intent? So I am running low on time, but I'll tell you as much like this. It becomes highly, highly important to understand the way Google looks at you from the lens of intent. And I'll be so bold as to say that the tools that are around now versus the tools that are around in 10 years from now are going to be the ones that offer you insight on intent. And you don't really have to wait for that. There's about a million things you can do, and it's very, very particular to what kind of site you have or what you want to do with your site. But, I mean, it's anything as simple as thinking, brainstorming. What are the multiple reasons why a user would search for this term? Why would they go about this query? And what are the implications? What are the different paths users will take based upon their intention or the reason why they're searching for this? Or it could be as simple as doing what I've been doing this entire time. And yes, like a good teacher, I've been showing you how to do this and actually telling you. You can simply run a query, break down the multiple intents on the page or sub-intents on the page, and then see, is that pervasive? For example, in the case of buy car insurance, well, the term buy, Google understood buy as learn 26% of the time. So I'll sort of summarize it or wrap it up with this. And as cliche as it sounds, the future of SEO is in intent analysis. It's understanding how Google views to use a Freudian term, the latent and manifest intents that are embedded within the keywords that you're targeting, and the manifest and latent intents that are embedded within the content that you're creating on your page. And understanding how those two align. Like in the case of Geico, they didn't align. So Geico would write and they have a guide about how to buy car insurance. Okay, it also means not being afraid of machine learning because there are things you can do. And as I've said, it means going query specific and understanding and experimenting with how does Google see me through the lens of intent, and which factors are subsequently important or not important for me. And if you don't know where to start. So yeah, a niche ranking factor study showing that the most influential factor for this niche is X could be a good place to start. But it also means using your brain a bit and saying, well, you know what? The niche ranking factor study says that this is the most influential ranking factor for me in my niche, but it makes no sense for my site. Well, it might make no sense for your site, and it's okay to buck the trend, so to speak. And with that, I will end, and I thank you for joining me at SMX and hope to see you at the next one.